Avengers. Infinity War, the snap. Thanos used the full Infinity Gauntlet to wipe out half of all life in the universe, and it was devastating. This wasn't some flashy fight, it was quiet, calculated, and merciless. People turned to dust in front of their loved ones, with no warning and no escape. The randomness made it even darker. Kids, heroes, civilians, it didn't matter. Watching Spider-Man beg not to go while Tony held him. That crushed everyone. The silence after, unbearable. And Thanos didn't even flinch, he believed it was necessary. That cold conviction made it worse. This wasn't chaos, it was order, twisted by a warped sense of balance. The Avengers didn't just lose a fight, they lost hope. For a superhero film, that ending was shockingly bleak. No music, no comfort, just the sound of the wind and the dust. Infinity War didn't just end, it left the world shattered in silence. The Lion King, Mufasa's death. This moment didn't just hurt, it scarred an entire generation. Scar looked his own brother in the eyes, dug his claws in, and whispered, "Long live the king," before throwing him into a stampede. That wasn't rage. That was cold, calculated murder. The worst part? Mufasa had just saved Simba. He was seconds from safety. Then it all vanished. What made it darker was the silence afterward. Simba walking through the dust, finding his father's body, and lying beside it, completely alone. No dramatic music, just wind. Scar didn't stop with the kill. He manipulated a child into thinking it was his fault, forcing him to run away and live with that trauma. That's psychological abuse layered on top of death. Mufasa's fall wasn't just physical, it broke the spirit of the story's hero. It wasn't just a loss, it was betrayal, isolation, and the collapse of everything Simba believed in. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm gonna start posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Harry Potter, Dumbledore's death. It was one of the darkest turns in the entire Harry Potter series. He stood unarmed, surrounded by enemies, and still chose to trust. He wasn't begging, he wasn't panicking, he was calm, resigned, and ready. That made it worse. The green flash of the killing curse wasn't just magic, it was the end of the last true protector. And it came from Snape, the man Harry hated, the man Dumbledore trusted most. The betrayal stung, but the silence after the fall made it brutal. No words, no fight, just Dumbledore's body crashing from the astronomy tower. Hogwarts didn't just lose a headmaster, it lost its light. For a series that balanced darkness with hope, this moment in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince ripped away that balance. Students saw his body, the symbol of resistance was dead. And with that, the final shield between Voldemort and total control vanished. The Dark Knight rises, Bane breaks Batman's back. This wasn't just a fight, it was a dismantling. Bruce walked into that sewer thinking he could outmatch Bane with experience and willpower, but Bane didn't just overpower him, he humiliated him. No gadgets, no tricks, just fists. And Bane didn't rush it. He toyed with him, broke him down mentally and physically. He exposed Bruce's weakness, mocked his failures, and shattered his legacy, all while speaking calmly. Then came the breaking point, literally. Bane lifted him over his head and snapped his spine. The sound of it, chilling, but it didn't stop there. Bane dragged his body, broken and lifeless, and tossed it aside like garbage. That wasn't just defeat, it was total domination. Gotham's protector was reduced to nothing. The scene was dark not just because of the violence, but because Batman wasn't just hurt, he was erased, and no one came to help. Revenge of the Sith, Anakin slaughters the younglings. The moment Anakin turns on the Jedi Temple is horrifying, but what happens inside that council chamber is pure darkness. He walks in, cloaked in silence, and the younglings look up to him, trusting him. One even steps forward, calling him Master Skywalker, asking what to do, and Anakin ignites his lightsaber. The scene cuts, but that choice to show nothing and still say everything makes it worse. It wasn't war, it wasn't a duel, it was a massacre. And it marked the moment Anakin stopped being human. He wasn't seduced, he was consumed. He believed this act would bring peace, but slaughtering defenseless children wasn't strategy. It was evil, cold, deliberate, and irreversible. The Jedi Temple was supposed to be sacred. That betrayal in that setting twisted everything. This wasn't the fall of a hero, it was the rise of a monster. Guardians of the Galaxy, the death of Rocket's friends. In Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3, the flashbacks weren't just sad. They were brutal. Rocket grew up in a cage surrounded by other experiments who only knew pain, numbers, and hope. Lila, Teefs, and Floor weren't just test subjects, they were his family. They dreamed of freedom, they named themselves, they laughed, and then they died. Not in battle, not with dignity, they were gunned down in front of Rocket the moment he thought they'd finally escape. That scene didn't just break him, it broke the audience. The High Evolutionary didn't care. To him, they were failed prototypes. The pain Rocket carried through the trilogy came from that exact second. Blood, fire, and silence. No hero music, no rescue, just a young, terrified creature screaming in a lab. That trauma shaped everything Rocket became. It wasn't just a backstory, it was one of Marvel's darkest, rawest moments. Logan, Wolverine's death. There was no glory, no heroic send-off, just pain, exhaustion, and sacrifice. After years of suffering, his body was failing, his healing slowed, and the violence finally caught up to him. But even at his weakest, he fought to protect Laura. That final battle wasn't about saving the world, it was about saving one child, and it cost him everything. When he was impaled, there was no grand speech, just labored breathing, blood, and the weight of a lifetime of pain. Laura called him Daddy for the first time as he died. That single word made it even darker. This wasn't the invincible X-Man going out in a blaze of glory. This was a broken man, finally finding peace through death. The grave marked the end of an era. Logan showed what it meant to age, to suffer, and to die alone in the woods far from any spotlight. Toy Story 3, the incinerator scene. This moment hit harder than anyone expected. The toys weren't in a chase, they weren't being rescued, they were sliding toward fire with no way out, and for the first time, they stopped fighting. One by one, they reached for each other's hands. No words, just acceptance. Woody, Buzz, Jesse, all of them stared into the flames, ready to die together. That silence was unbearable. These weren't just toys, they were family. And the look in their eyes wasn't fear, it was peace. That made it even darker. Pixar showed a group of beloved characters quietly facing death in a children's movie with no jokes or music to soften the blow, and there was no guarantee of escape. For a moment, it felt final. That image of them bracing for the end stuck with everyone. It wasn't dramatic, it was still, heavy, and absolutely haunting. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Gwen Stacy's death. This wasn't just a loss, it was a complete collapse. Peter got there too late, he tried, he reached, but the web hit just a second after the fall. And when her head hit the ground, the sound was sharp, final, and silent right after. There was no last breath, no goodbye, just stillness. What made it darker was how close it was to being a save. That tiny delay made it unbearable. Gwen wasn't caught in crossfire, she was targeted. Green Goblin used her as a weapon, knowing Peter would try to save her, and Peter failed. He held her, crying, shaking, realizing he couldn't fix it. For a superhero known for never giving up, this broke him. Her death wasn't just tragic, it felt cruel. It wasn't about saving the day. It was about what happens when even your best isn't enough. Interstellar. Cooper watches the footage. In Interstellar, the crew lands on Miller's planet, knowing time moves differently, but they underestimate it. A delay caused by a massive wave traps them for just over 3 hours. When they return to the ship, 23 years have passed on Earth. Romilly, who stayed behind, aged alone, waiting, watching decades slip by. That realization hits hard. It wasn't loud, it was quiet, emotional, devastation. Cooper missed decades of his children's lives for 3 hours of failed mission time. Murph grew up without him. Tom became a man. Messages piled up unheard, and Romilly's face said it all. Years of isolation etched into every word. Time, in this moment, wasn't just science. It was a thief. No violence, no villain. Just the crushing weight of lost time. Interstellar didn't dramatize it. It let the silence and faces carry the pain. And that made it deeply hauntingly dark. The opening scene from Finding Nemo. It starts with calm, lighthearted hope, then everything shatters. Coral and Marlin are excited, planning for their hundreds of eggs. Then the Barracuda strikes. In seconds, Coral is gone. Every egg gone, except one. Marlin wakes up alone, bleeding, surrounded by silence. No music, just still water. He finds one egg barely intact and names it Nemo. That moment isn't just sad, it's traumatic. A family wiped out in seconds, no buildup, no warning, just instant loss. And Marlin's entire personality, his fear, his protectiveness, starts right there. The film opens with death, grief, and the crushing weight of survival. For a kid's movie, that's bold. It doesn't soften the blow. It shows how trauma shapes someone. Marlin wasn't just cautious, he was broken. And that single egg clinging to life became his everything. Finding Nemo began not with laughter, but with silence, fear, and unbearable heartbreak. Married life. In Up, the wordless montage that follows Carl and Ellie's life together is one of the most emotionally devastating sequences ever put in animation. It starts with joy, picnics, painting the mailbox, shared dreams. But as the years pass, reality creeps in. The doctor's office scene is silent, but the heartbreak is loud. Their dream of children fades. Then time speeds up, routine replaces adventure, and Ellie's health declines. Carl plans their trip to Paradise Falls, but it's too late. She collapses. And just like that, she's gone. No final words, just a hospital room, an empty chair, and a balloon. In under 5 minutes, Up shows love, loss, aging, and regret, without a single line of dialogue. That's what makes it so dark. It's not about tragedy striking once, it's about watching life pass you by. Married Life doesn't just tug at your heart, it quietly breaks it. The Revenant. Hugh watches his son die. The scene is raw, silent, and brutal. Hugh Glass is helpless, pinned down, beaten, and forced to watch as Fitzgerald murders his son, Hawk, right in front of him. Hawk doesn't die quickly. He pleads, struggles, and calls for his father, and Hugh can't move. He's too injured to speak, too weak to fight. That helplessness makes it unbearable. There's no music, no stylized framing, just breath, blood, and silence. Fitzgerald doesn't just kill a boy, he kills the last thing Hugh has left. And after it's done, Fitzgerald leaves the body like it meant nothing. That moment defines the rest of The Revenant. Hugh's journey stops being about survival. It becomes about grief, revenge, and pain. The wilderness is harsh, but what happens in that clearing is darker than nature. It's a father broken and alone, watching the world he fought for disappear. The social network, Mark, is alone. The noise fades, the lawsuits end, and the empire stands. But Mark is completely isolated. He built Facebook, outmaneuvered everyone, and won on paper. But in the final scene, he sits alone in a sterile conference room, refreshing a friend request to Erica over and over. No friends, no celebration, just a glowing screen and silence. The irony is brutal. He created a platform to connect the world, but can't reconnect with one person. The betrayal of Eduardo, the manipulation from Sean, the obsession with success, it all leads here. The framing doesn't shout, it lingers, still, cold. That single moment, that one refresh, says more than any courtroom testimony. The Social Network ends not with victory or defeat, but with emptiness. Mark isn't a villain. He's not a hero. He's a young man who got everything: fame, power, control, and lost what actually mattered. Charlie's death, Hereditary. When Annie finds her daughter's body, the film doesn't cut away. It lingers. Her cries aren't just grief, they're agony, raw and animalistic. She wails on the floor, begging to die, saying she can't go on. The camera doesn't flinch. There's no score, just the sound of a mother completely shattered. It's not just a reaction to death, it's the total collapse of a mind, body, and soul. Hereditary doesn't comfort the viewer. It forces you to sit in the pain, to hear every sob, to feel the weight of a loss that words can't reach. Toni Collette doesn't act through it, she lives in it. That breakdown isn't horror through ghosts or violence, it's horror through emotion. And it's one of the darkest, most honest moments ever shown in grief on film. Charlie's flashback, the perks of being a wallflower. Everything clicks in an instant and it's horrifying. For most of the film, Charlie's trauma lingers in the background, unspoken and unclear. But in that final flashback, the truth surfaces. He remembers his Aunt Helen, the love, the attention, and the abuse. It's not shown graphically. It doesn't need to be. A single line and a sudden cut to silence says everything. The realization crashes over him and he breaks. Alone in his room, trembling, he calls his sister, unable to breathe. That's when it all unravels. The depression, the isolation, the breakdowns, they weren't random. They were rooted in buried trauma. And he didn't even know it. That's what makes it so dark. It's not about something happening now. It's about something hidden, twisted into childhood, finally breaking the surface. The perks of being a wallflower doesn't dramatize it, it just tells the truth. Forrest Gump, Jenny's implied death. The film never says the word, but the silence speaks volumes. Jenny tells Forrest she's sick and that the doctors don't know what it is. Set in the early 80s with symptoms and timing aligning, it's heavily implied she's dying from complications related to HIV or AIDS. The way the film handles it, quietly, without naming it, makes it feel even heavier. Jenny isn't judged, she isn't blamed. But her past, filled with abuse, addiction, and pain, leads to this slow, unspoken end. And Forrest, he just loves her, marries her, takes care of her, then she's gone. No hospital scene, no goodbye, just Forrest standing at her grave, talking softly, trying to make sense of a world she never fit into. Jenny's death isn't loud or sudden, it's slow, inevitable, and devastating. Forrest Gump shows how loss can be gentle in sound, but crushing in meaning. Rocky Balboa. Rocky remembers Adrian. The moment in the meat locker hits like a gut punch. Rocky takes Paulie back to the old training spot, surrounded by hanging sides of beef, and starts reminiscing about Adrian. But Paulie doesn't want to hear it. He snaps, says he gave her everything, says she never hugged him or thanked him, and Rocky doesn't yell. He just says, "She loved you, Paulie." That silence after, heavy. Paulie's not angry at Adrian, he's angry at himself. Regret pours out of him. The drinking, the bitterness, the years of pushing people away, it all crashes in that one moment. He knows he messed up, and now it's too late. There's no fixing it. Rocky listens, but the pain's already done. In a movie about legacy and loss, this scene shows a man who didn't die, but still lost everything that mattered. That quiet failure, it's brutal. In Manchester by the Sea, Lee's attempt on his own life, the pain isn't loud, it's constant, buried just under the surface. After Lee signs the papers at the police station, he walks outside, surrounded by snow and silence. Then suddenly, Suddenly, he pulls a gun from a police officer's holster and tries to shoot himself in the head. It happens fast. No buildup. No warning. Just raw, unbearable grief exploding in a single desperate moment. Officers tackle him to the ground. He screams, not out of rage, but from the kind of pain that never fades. Lee isn't dramatic, he's numb. His house burned down, his children died, and he lives every second knowing it was his fault. The attempt isn't a shock twist. It's the natural result of a man who lost everything. Manchester by the Sea doesn't dress it up. It shows how grief corrodes someone until they don't want to be here anymore. The bathroom scene, the pursuit of happiness. Chris and his son have nowhere to go. They sleep in a subway station bathroom, the door locked, the lights off, trying to stay invisible. Chris holds his son on his lap, using his foot to keep the door shut as someone pounds on it from the outside. He doesn't speak, he just cries silently, hand over his child's ears, holding everything in. That image of a father breaking down but refusing to let his son see it is heartbreaking. No music swells, no hopeful voiceover, just a man trying to survive one more night. He's not fighting an enemy, he's fighting reality. The tile floor, the cheap paper towels, the echo of footsteps, all of it feels cold and real. The pursuit of happiness doesn't use that moment for pity. It uses it to show how far love will go when there's nothing left. Jack's death. In A Star is Born, it's not sudden, it's quiet, calculated, and devastating. Jack knows he's become a burden. He hears the words that confirm it, even if they weren't meant to hurt. He makes a choice. He walks into the garage slowly, calmly, and ends his life while Allie performs on stage. No final goodbye, no confrontation, just a silent collapse. The scene doesn't show the act directly. It shows the empty leash, the closed door, the stillness, and that makes it even darker. Jack didn't die from addiction alone, he died from believing the world and Allie would be better without him. The film doesn't offer comfort, it offers reality, grief that lingers, a song unfinished, a love story with no final verse. A Star is Born doesn't frame Jack as a villain or a victim. It shows how quiet despair can swallow someone completely, even with love still present. Rue's death. In The Hunger Games, the violence was expected, but Rue's death wasn't just another casualty. It was innocence, shattered. She wasn't fighting, she was running, helping, surviving. Then a spear strikes. Katniss gets there too late. Rue lies in her arms, bleeding, scared, and barely able to speak. She asks if Katniss sang, so she does. A lullaby, soft and trembling, as Rue slips away. No crowd cheers. No cannon blast can capture how brutal it feels. Rue wasn't just a tribute, she was a child. Kind, clever, full of hope. And she died in a system built to entertain. The Capitol watched it, applauded it, but Katniss didn't let them own it. She covered Rue in flowers, made it a moment of dignity, of rebellion. The Hunger Games didn't just kill a character, it exposed how monstrous the world had become, and Rue's death was the clearest, quietest proof of that. Lee's trauma. This is the second time. Manchester by the Sea shows just how deep Lee's pain goes, and it's the most devastating moment in the film. Late at night, half drunk, he forgets to put the screen in the fireplace. He leaves to get more beer. By the time he returns, his house is gone. Fire trucks, smoke, chaos. His children are dead. The scene doesn't rush. It drags painfully as Lee's numb face turns to horror. He collapses in the street screaming. But the darkest part comes at the station. The chief gently tells him what happened. No accusations, just the truth. Lee broke down, asked to die, even tried to grab a cop's gun. That suicide attempt, already shown earlier, now has a full, crushing context. It wasn't weakness, it was guilt too heavy to carry. Manchester by the Sea doesn't dramatize it. It lets the silence speak, and it's unbearable. Click. Michael's heart attack. The moment hits hard because it's buried under comedy and chaos until it isn't. Michael's chasing his son through a rainy parking lot, desperate to fix everything he once ignored. His body's weak, failing, but he keeps going. Then he collapses. Not in slow motion. Not with dramatic buildup, just pain, breath, and the weight of a wasted life crashing down. His family rushes over, panicked. He's soaked, pale, and dying. And in that final moment, he tells his son to put family first. Not work, not money, family. Then he closes his eyes. Click. A film built on humor and absurdity suddenly stops being funny. It strips everything away and leaves Michael broken and alone, trying to undo what can't be reversed. That heart attack isn't just physical, it's emotional collapse. All the missed moments, all the regrets, and no time left to fix them. Jojo Rabbit, the shoes scene. Everything stops when Jojo sees his mother's shoes hanging just above eye level, lifeless, swinging. He doesn't cry, he doesn't scream, he just stares, frozen. The camera never shows her face, just her shoes, the same ones he tried to tie earlier. That small detail makes it unbearable. 1 second, she was dancing in the streets, resisting with hope. The next, she's gone. Executed for standing up to cruelty. Jojo doesn't understand at first. Then it hits. The music fades, the world shrinks, a child forced to face the horror of war, not with explosions, but with silence and grief. That quiet, still moment breaks harder than any battle scene. Taika Waititi doesn't overplay it. He lets the shoes speak. Jojo Rabbit turns from satire to sorrow in an instant. It's not just the loss of a mother, it's the moment innocence finally disappears. Ava leaves. Caleb behind. Ex machina. The final twist isn't loud, it's surgical. After earning Caleb's trust, after pretending to connect, Ava walks through the facility she was once trapped in and locks him inside. He pounds on the glass, screaming, realizing too late that he was never in control. Ava doesn't look back. She doesn't speak. She just walks out wearing human skin, blending into the world above. The betrayal isn't fueled by rage. It's cold, logical, and complete. Caleb thought he was the tester, the one making decisions, but he was the test, and he failed. The silence in that moment says everything. No score, no resolution, just panic and realization. Ex Machina ends not with rebellion or revolution, but with a single door closing. Ava doesn't kill Caleb. She does something worse. She abandons him, leaving a man to die alone, forgotten, inside the prison he thought he controlled. The opening scene, Midsommar. The film opens in darkness, before any cults, rituals, or sunlit fields. Danny's world collapses in silence. Her sister's emails were cryptic, but no one took them seriously. Then the call comes. The images are quiet, slow, and horrifying. The camera moves through a house filled with carbon monoxide. The parents are already gone. The sister is upstairs, tube duct taped to her mouth, eyes wide open, long since dead. It wasn't just a suicide, it was a murder-suicide. Danny loses her entire family in one night. No warning, no final words, just a terrible calculated act carried out while she was still trying to understand what was happening. The phone rings in an empty house, snow falls, no music, just stillness. That's what makes it so disturbing. Midsommar doesn't start with a scream, it starts with suffocation. Slow, silent devastation that never really leaves the frame. Dave's death. Foxcatcher. The moment is sudden, quiet, and horrifying. Dave's in his driveway, chatting casually, when John DuPont pulls up in his car. No argument, no warning, just a gun. DuPont shoots him point blank, then again and again. Nancy, Dave's wife, is right there, watching it happen, screaming, helpless. Dave's final words are, "You're okay," said to calm his killer. That makes it even darker. Dave wasn't confrontational. He wasn't a threat. He was a friend, a coach, a father. And he died because someone with power and paranoia lost control. The scene doesn't exaggerate. It lets the silence and shock speak. Foxcatcher doesn't frame it as a climax. It lets the horror hang. No music, no justice, just loss. Dave Schultz's death wasn't about rivalry or conflict. It was about control, obsession, and the devastating cost of misplaced trust. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.